Hello everybody, welcome back with another video. Today we are back to Pacific War episode 0.5, China at War. So yes, this episode is about the Chinese Civil War that started in 1927 and ended in 1945 when the communists won the Civil War. I got some notes. I got it from Wikipedia. So here, Chinese Civil War was a civil war in China fought between the Kuomintang-led government of the Republic of China, or ROC, and forces of the Chinese Communist Party, lasting intermittently after 1927. So yes, I got the Wikipedia page over here, and the Kuomintang is the nationalists. Yes, the nationalists are the Kuomintang that are actually fled to Taiwan. Yeah, now we have the country named Taiwan. I know, I'm gonna call the Taiwan. Okay, so here the war is generally divided into two phases with an interlude. From August 1927 to 1937, the Kuomintang CCP alliance collapsed during the Northern Expedition. And here, the Northern Expedition was a military campaign launched by National Revolution Army (NRA), the Kuomintang, KMT, also known as the Chinese Nationalist Party, against the Beiyang government and other regional warlords in 1926. Yes, this was actually a big thing because in this China at War, I know I'm saying this because it's in the video, but I'm just going to tell you guys. And the nationalists controlled most of the China because yes, they started the revolution and they rose to power. And from 1937 to 1945, hostilities were put on hold, and the Second United Front fought the Japanese invasion of China. So the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 1945, was a military conflict that was primarily waged between the Republic of China and the Empire of Japan. The war made up the Chinese theater of the wider Pacific theater of the Second World War. The beginning of the war is the Pacific War, with eventual help from the allies of World War II. And yes, the Civil War was resumed with the Japanese defeat, and the CCP gained the upper hand in the final phase of the war from 1945 to 1949, generally referred to as the Chinese Communist Revolution. So yes, and after the Chinese Communist Revolution happened, the Kuomintang fled to Taiwan, and that's the reason why we have Taiwan right now. So like and subscribe. Let's get right to the video. Okay, so earlier I know I told you guys like the whole thing in this video, like the China War and the Pacific War, but still I just wanted you guys to know more information. Like, I know this video is gonna tell everything about the Chinese Civil War, but hey, I just wanted to say something. And yes, so here I'm gonna start my recording. Hold on, I'm sorry guys. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, like I'm using Bandicam, and yeah, it's been a while when the last time I recorded, like 6 days ago. Like the Great Depression video was actually recorded like more than like 10 days ago. Like, I know I'm not very efficient in my posting, but hey, I'm still posting. So here we go. Calm down. Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay, so I'm actually pretty excited because actually like learning about the Chinese Civil War, the Sino-Japanese War, and yeah, the second Sino-Japanese War. Okay. Hold on, too loud. Okay. The Pacific War. What the hell is this? Hold on, I gotta. You know what? This is put it in 720p. Just give me. Okay.
China is a huge country full of important resources and extensive farmlands, a huge population, and an important strategic and commercial position. This made it a desirable objective for expansion to European colonial powers, but also to the rising Japanese Empire. Within China itself, revolutions, civil wars, and warlordism plagued the nation, as different factions fought to become the ultimate ruler of the country. So today we return to East Asia to cover the divided state of the Chinese people and the start of the Second Sino-Japanese War. If you agree with us that male hygiene is essential in our...
Okay, we gotta skip that. Manscape, I gotta skip that. Start, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna... okay.
Our exclusive link in the description to get 20% off, plus free international shipping, plus 2 free gifts.
Pacific War, 1941 to 1945, China at War, episode 0.5. Okay.
By the end of the 18th century, the powerful Qing Empire that controlled the vast lands of China was at its zenith, expanding into Central Asia, increasing in population, and becoming the largest economy in the world. But when the 19th century ended, the golden years of the Qing were long gone. Suffering from military weakness, social unrest, foreign interventions, and economic problems, the Chinese Empire had become a sick state in Asia.
Like, the Opium War was very, very horrible in China. Like, damn, British. I don't know if that's British. Point me if I'm wrong, but I know it's British. Social unrest, yes. Yes, military weakness. Their military was very weak. Foreign intervention, yes. The imperialists, the economic problems, yes. It's ripe for an huge revolution. Heck, even a civil war.
At the start of the 20th century, as young officers and scholars debated the overthrow of the failing dynasty, a military uprising ended with the proclamation of the Republic of China on January 1st, 1912. Dictatorially led by Yuan Shikai, who controlled the modernized Beiyang army, the new Chinese Republic was held in a fragile balance between the nationalists and the republicans. With an iron...
Yeah, the Kuomintang led by Song Ju-ren were the original revolutionaries. Like, in the Kuomintang, they were the most well-known leader of the Kuomintang was actually Chiang Kai-shek. And while the the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, I'm sorry, is well known to be led by Mao Zedong. So yeah.
Fist, Yuan managed to keep the country together, but his methods severely antagonized the Kuomintang revolutionaries, eventually dissolving the Nationalist Party and declaring himself Emperor of China in 1915. This attempt caused widespread rebellions in numerous provinces, leading to the establishment of warlord states throughout China after the death of Yuan. Meanwhile, Kuomintang loyalists retreated to the south and established a government led by Sun Yat-sen with the objective of reuniting the fragmented nation. After the end of the Great War, massive popular demonstrations and manifestations occurred against Japanese interests in the country and against the government of the Beiyang warlords, ushering in the creation of the Chinese Communist Party and its alliance with the Kuomintang.
The first united front of the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party reunited because of this. Okay.
The warlords continued to fight among themselves for the ultimate control of Beijing. Chiang Kai-shek would succeed Sun Yat-sen as leader of the Kuomintang after his death, quickly setting out to prepare for a military campaign against the northern warlords. With the success of the northern expedition, half of China would be under the control of the nationalists by 1927.
Yes, Chiang Kai-shek, most well known to be the leader of Kuomintang. So yeah.
But Chiang's own purging of communists within the Kuomintang would
Shanghai
unexpectedly
Massacre
lead to the creation of the Red Army and the start of the civil war between communists and nationalists. By the end of
That's a big mistake. The Shanghai Massacre to the Kuomintang is a big mistake. That's the reason why the CCP rose to power and declared war on the Kuomintang. So their alliance broke and they're now at a civil war.
1928, Chiang's northern expedition ended in complete success, finally conquering Beijing and bringing the whole of China under the nominal control of the Kuomintang. Although some warlords still ruled in semi-autonomous states, Chiang's government in Nanking received international recognition and legitimately reformed the Chinese Republic. Meanwhile, the communists continued to resist against nationalist encirclement campaigns, and in the north, the Mukden incident sparked a full-blown Japanese invasion of Manchuria, against which Chiang simply couldn't resist.
The Mukden accident was actually, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it's in a like an explosion of a train. Of a train, yes. And and it started like the invasion of Manchuria. The Manchukuo, we learned that from not last video, because the last video was about how America became an empire. It was episode 0.3. Yes. Okay.
Nonetheless, the Nanking Decade was a time of consolidation for the nationalists. Thus, Chiang's regime would embark on a modernization effort, successfully improving its economy and renegotiating some of the foreign concessions, and also starting the training of loyal and elite divisions with the aid of German advisors. Eventually, the communists would be finally routed at Jiangxi in 1934, but the Red Army would manage to break through the Kuomintang encirclement, starting the Long March to the
Long March. They retreated and they did this long march where so many people died because of thirst and unrest. And surprisingly, Mao Zedong in the Chinese Communist Party was alive. And when he got to his destination, he was like promoted to be, I don't know what is the highest ranking, but he was like reported to be like the leader of the Chinese Communist Party.
The northwest. Led by Mao Zedong, the main column would successfully avoid the pursuit of Kuomintang forces and would march for an entire year through more than 9,000 kilometers until arriving at Shanxi, where Mao became the undisputed leader of the party.
See, I became a leader. Imagine that you've been marching for 1 year. Wow. No rest, just to keep on marching. I know there's going to be rests, but there's going to be people that is searching for y'all, and if you stop, they can easily caught up with you and try to arrest you.
From their new base at Yan'an, the communists would continue to resist Chiang's attacks for the next few years.
That's
this
impressive.
period would also see increased Japanese aggression in the north, rapidly expanding their puppet states into the Chahar and Jehol provinces, and threatening the important city of Beijing. But Chiang took a passive position against Japan, and considered the communists to be a greater danger to the Chinese Republic, stating that communism was cancer, while the Japanese only represented a superficial wound.
Yeah. Yes, like, you're right. He was right. Communists was like the biggest threat, while the Japanese, yes, they're still a threat, but they can still lose this invasion because they're not like Chinese. Like the Chinese people can just revolt and start like a revolution where Chiang Kai-shek can just help the revolutionaries and try to push back the Empire of Japan. See?
This policy of compromise was very unpopular in China and within the Kuomintang itself, which prompted some disgruntled nationalist generals to conspire with the communists to capture Chiang and force him into a truce with the CCP.
Yeah, but hey, I'm in the future, but in this was the past, but in the future it's very, very different. So yeah.
Meanwhile, the Sui-Yuan campaign of Prince Demchuk Dongrup failed miserably, and General Fu Zuoyi managed to inflict heavy casualties on the Inner Mongolian army, alerting the conspirators that this was the time to act while morale was high against the Japanese. So on December 12, 1936, Chiang was detained in the Xi'an incident and had to negotiate with the communists for 2 weeks, finally deciding to cease hostilities against them to prepare for an impending war with Japan.
Yes, the Second United Front, earlier I said it earlier, from 1937 to 1945, hostilities put on hold because of the Japanese invasion of China. So yeah.
And to form a second united front against the Japanese. By 1937, the Chinese had assembled a large army of 1,700,000 regulars and 557,000 reservists in preparation for the war. But the loyalty of great sections of the army was questionable. It had a low supply of guns and artillery, and it only counted 2 armored units. Unlike China, the Japanese were prepared for total war, with the IJA counting 1,015,000 regulars destined to fight in China and around 78,000 soldiers from their puppet states. The 28 divisions assigned for the war were fully trained, equipped and experienced, giving them a clear advantage in fighting strength against the Chinese. During the year 1937, a series of border clashes occurred between Chinese and Japanese forces, usually ending with the Chinese writing a humiliating apology. But on July 7th, the Marco Polo Bridge incident to the west of Beijing would ignite a full-scale war between the two countries, as a fire exchange quickly escalated into the Japanese occupation of Tientsin and Beijing by August 8th. Tokyo was very happy with the outcome of the campaign, but it was reluctant to declare war on the Chinese, as the Japanese didn't want to divert forces from the Manchurian border with the Soviet Union, where several border conflicts had been happening in the last few years. But Chiang had had enough.
Yeah, because first of all, they're hesitant, because if they're gonna declare war on China and there's like disputes in the Soviet Union, this could lead to a two-front war, like in the World War One. Yes, like World War One, because Germany fought a two-front war, and we all know what happened. They lost because when US came and all of the country, the whole world declared war on them. Like, yeah, they're hesitant. The Japanese are hesitant.
And he consequently mobilized his entire forces to fight against Japan's aggression. The war had thus begun. Meanwhile,
okay. I'm gonna mute this ad. Oh. Okay. I thought I'm gonna mute that ad. It just kept it automatically.
Meanwhile, in Shanghai, fighting broke out between Chinese troops under Zhang Jizhong and the 4,000-strong Japanese Marines that defended 30,000 Japanese civilians. Tokyo quickly reinforced the Shanghai defenders with 20,000 more Marines, commanded by General Matsui Iwane, and also ordered the 3rd Fleet to open fire on Chinese positions. Shanghai was of the utmost importance for Chiang's regime, so he sent his most loyal men to have numerical superiority in the struggle. Chinese air operations also managed to inflict severe damage over the Third Fleet with their advanced biplane and monoplane designs. The Battle of Shanghai was brutal, with heavy losses on each side, but to no effect, as in the urban center, the fighting reached a stalemate.
Yeah, it's like a stalemate. And these are those battles that comes or becomes a stalemate, with both sides having a lot of casualties, and it can lead to negotiation, or it could lead to a miracle. A miracle, if something happens to like maybe China, in the Chinese army, Japan can use the opportunity to use that miracle and win the battle.
Furthermore, Japanese naval landings to the north forced the Chinese to disperse their forces along a front line that spanned from the Huangpu River to the coast north of Shanghai. At the same time, an expeditionary force of the Kwantung Army advanced southwards through Inner Mongolia, crushing the Chinese at the battles of Nankou, Huailai, and Kalgan with the superior firepower.
Hey, my God, what's up? Oh, look, it's General. Hey, I'm sorry. I know he's a ruthless dictator, but if you're subscribed to me when I started reacting to this series, I always mention this man, Tojo Hideki, or Hideki Tojo, Chief of Staff of the Kwantung Army. I'm sorry. I know he's a ruthless dictator, but hey, just saying, like, you'll know. I'm always mentioning this man in every video, if something that is actually if he's involved in it, or
in Mongolia, crushing the Chinese at the battles of Nankou, Huailai, and Kalgan with the superior firepower of their tanks. These forces would then advance to Shaanxi, taking Taiwan and completing the conquest of Inner Mongolia by November 7th.
First of all, please, I'm just being sarcastic, okay? Okay, I'm just being sarcastic. Okay, the decision, there's a lot of decisions that I hate. Because, I'm just being sarcastic earlier, okay?
While from Beijing, the Japanese would advance to occupy the North China Plain. On the seas, the IJN would also start a naval blockade all around China, hoping to prevent foreign aid from reaching the nation, as the Western powers strongly condemned the Japanese invasion. In September and October, as Matsui's forces managed to capture Luodian and Liuhang, more Japanese reinforcements arrived that successfully wrestled control of the critical position at Dachang. With Dachang lost, the Chinese forces started to withdraw from Shanghai on November 7th.
Like that. Stalemate, sometimes it can lead to a negotiation or a miracle, or an opportunity. So
But the retreat quickly turned into a rout, and Chiang lost most of his loyal and elite men. Overall, the Chinese suffered more than 250,000 casualties in the struggle, while the Japanese only suffered around 90,000 casualties. Weakened by the defeat at Shanghai, disparate Chinese units established defenses around their capital, led by Commander Tang Shenji. At the same time, Matsui started a pincer movement directed towards Nanking, defeating the already battered Chinese soldiers and reaching the Chinese capital with haste by December 9th. What followed was a bloody struggle on the outskirts of Nanking, one in which superior Japanese firepower would win the day yet again.
This one, I'm confused about this. The name, not about this, but the name. One documentary pronounced this Nanjing, but like the oversimplified one, and some others mentioned it Nanking. I don't know, is it Nanjing or Nanking? Let me know in the comments.
Again, even despite the fierce resistance of Tang's men. As the Chinese defences were collapsing and the Japanese encircled the city, Chiang ordered the abandonment of Nanking on December 11th, but only a small force led by Tang himself could break out of the Japanese encirclement on December 13th.
This was brutal.
The rest of the defenders, along with some
Yes, the rape of Nanking. This was very, very brutal. I'm sorry. The rape of Nanking was pretty brutal, or very, very brutal, because I watched a documentary that is named Evolution of Evil in YouTube. You should probably check. If you guys are interested in dictators, you should watch that. All of their documentaries about the dictators. Like, they have dictators like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Hideki Tojo, Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, Papa Doc Duvalier, Benito Mussolini, and even Osama bin Laden. They have a lot of documentaries about them. But in the documentary about Hideki Tojo, that's the reason why I know him, they shown how brutal it was in the documentary. In like there, it says it's just an act. They're just like acting, just showing how it was. It was pretty brutal. Okay, the rape of Nanking was pretty brutal. But in that documentary, they mentioned the rape of Nanjing, not Nanking. So yeah.
200,000 civilians were slaughtered during the Nanking massacre. The Nanking population was also subjected to rape, looting and arson by the Japanese soldiers in what the West came to describe as the Rape of Nanking. By the end of the year, Japanese successes thus far would allow them to establish collaborationist governments in Beijing, Shanghai and Nanking, and to reform its Inner Mongolian puppet into the new Mengjiang government. At this point, Tokyo was expecting that the Chinese would capitulate after the fall of their capital, as they were eager to end the war and further prepare for a confrontation with the Soviet Union. But Chiang would continue to reject the harsh demands of the invaders, thus moving the capital to the industrial center of Hankow. Moreover, the Japanese forces, encouraged by the many victories achieved, continued to escalate the war in China and tried to establish a connection between Beijing and Nanking.
To be honest with you, what if China capitulated? So, mentioned in the video, Japan is preparing for like an attack in the Soviet Union. What if the Soviet Union declared war on the Empire of Japan? It was 1937, 1945. The Soviet Union just rose to power. The communists in the Soviet Union just rose to power. So imagine the Soviet Union declaring war on Japan. Yes, that would be different. Like, Pacific War would be so different. Like the Soviets maybe invading Manchuria, and yeah.
Already in the early months of 1938, naval landings in Tsingtao culminated with the occupation of northern Shandong by March, although the Japanese advance would be stopped for the first time in the Battle of Taiyuan. This was a huge morale booster for the Chinese, and as the leader of the battle was warlord Li Zongren, there would be much more unity among the warlord and Kuomintang forces after this battle. Nonetheless, the Japanese would manage to encircle the major crossroads of Suzhou, which protected the new capital at Hankow. Chiang recognized that the defense of the town was futile.
This encirclement tactic is the most well known. This tactic is very well known in World War One. Yes, I've been watching some World War One videos, and I want to learn about that. But first, we have to like finish everything, like the Great Depression one, and maybe the Treaty of Versailles. But for the encirclement, the most well-known war that they use the encirclement was in World War One, when the Germans was encircling like maybe the Russian army. Yeah.
So he ordered his forces to withdraw and to demolish the dikes holding back the Yellow River, trying to slow down the Japanese advance. The resulting Yellow River flood inflicted heavy casualties on the Japanese and forced them to move up the Yangtze River, but it also caused incalculable destruction on the area and killed almost 500,000 civilians. Most of the Chinese soldiers, however, managed to retreat and establish solid defenses around Hankow. At the same time, the Japanese successfully invaded Amoy Island to prepare for more naval invasions, and they also started bombing operations over Hankow and the Sichuan region. But the main objective of the Japanese advance was now the city of Hankow, and Tokyo finally destined most of their resources for this campaign. On June 15th, the battle for Hankow started with the Japanese naval invasion of Anqing, followed by a string of successful naval invasions along the coast. And
the Battle of Wuhan.
Hankow started with the Japanese naval invasion of Anqing, followed by a string of successful naval invasions along the coast, an attack along the southern shore of the Yangtze River, and a two-pronged assault through the Dabia Mountains. The success of these operations meant that, by October, the Chinese defenses on the provinces of Henan, Jiangxi and Hubei were in a difficult position, leaving the way open to attack Hankow. Yet the Chinese would also succeed at stopping the Japanese advance through Wanjialing, and managed to mount a counterattack north of the Yangtze towards Taihu and Susong. But despite the fierce resistance of the Chinese, on October 21st, the Japanese naval invasion of Guangzhou ended in complete success, occupying the main port through which foreign aid was flowing and completing the encirclement of Hankow. With the fall of Guangzhou, the Chinese had no other alternative but to abandon their second capital on October 25th. But the 4-month-long resistance had at least gained much time for Chiang to prepare a new wartime capital at Chongqing and to prepare his forces to wage a war of attrition against the Japanese. Yet again, Tokyo hoped to end the war with the fall of Hankow, but to no avail, as the Chinese were determined to continue their resistance. Moreover, the Japanese forces had suffered many losses during the Hankow campaign and were very exhausted as well. In the last months of the year, the Japanese would continue to consolidate their control over the Wuhan and Canton regions, but they could already see that the war would be more prolonged than they had anticipated. Next week, we'll cover the continuation of the Sino-Japanese War, as well as the outbreak of hostilities in Europe and its impact in the Pacific. So make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see the next video in the series. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely.
First of all, can we go back to the map in... There's an amazing map. Look at this. This is actually the name of the Soviet Union. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The USSR. To be honest with you, they are just well known to be the Soviet Union and the USSR. Yes. But here is the start of the World War II. And look, here we have Germany, the German Reich. And there's Netherlands, France, United Kingdom, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. There's Italy. Look, French West Africa. Look at this. And French Equatorial Africa. Like, the France has so many territories in like before World War II. Like, look at this. This is huge. They even have territories in here, like Laos and what's this? Vietnam and some part of Cambodia. There's Kingdom of Siam, or that's Kingdom is in the Thailand. Like in the video, the last video is for Kingdom of Taiwan. I mean Taiwan, Kingdom of Thailand, and here's Dutch East Indies and the Philippines with an American flag. So yes, folks, that's China at War, Pacific War 0.5. Yeah, this is a long one because I paused so much, and because I have a lot of knowledge about this Chinese Civil War. So thank you for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.